Sometimes the weight of life feels unbearable, sometimes silence hurts louder than words. Maybe you're tired of trying. Maybe you feel like nothing will ever change. Maybe you're carrying wounds no one else can see. If that sounds like you, this story is for you. The rain had just stopped. The streets were wet, reflecting the dull yellow light of the street lamps. Aarav walked slowly, dragging his worn-out shoes against the muddy road. His shirt was drenched, but he didn't care. He had just failed another interview. It wasn't the first time, and deep down, he knew it wouldn't be the last. He reached his small rented room, opened the creaking door, and dropped his bag on the floor. Bills lay scattered on the table. The electricity was due. His phone buzzed once, then stopped. It was just a useless notification. No job offers. No messages from friends. Just silence. He sat down on the edge of his bed, his head in his hands. "Why me?" he whispered. "Why does life keep punishing me?" His voice cracked, echoing in the lonely room. For years, Aarav had carried dreams, big dreams. To be successful. To give his mother a better life. To finally feel proud of himself. But every time he tried, life slammed a door in his face. Rejections, failures, losses, they came like waves, one after another, never stopping, never allowing him to breathe. That night, he couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. He just stared at the ceiling, the fan spinning lazily above him. Thoughts kept attacking his mind. I'm useless. I'm a failure. Everyone else is moving forward, why am I stuck? The next morning, Aarav forced himself to attend yet another interview. He sat nervously in the waiting room, his hands trembling. But when his turn came, the panel looked at his resume, asked a few cold questions, and shook their heads politely. "We'll get back to you." He knew what that meant. Another rejection. Walking back home, Aarav passed by a construction site. He paused, staring. Men with hammers were breaking huge stones into smaller pieces. Sweat poured down their faces, dust covered their clothes, yet they kept working, relentlessly, endlessly. Aarav frowned. Why would anyone choose this kind of suffering, he thought. What's the point of this pain? The sound of hammering followed him as he walked away, heavy with frustration. That evening, back in his room, he sat in the dark. His chest felt tight, his eyes burned, and for the first time, he whispered words he had never dared to speak aloud. I can't take this anymore. The room was silent. Only his own breathing filled the space. He picked up a photo of his family from the bedside table, his mother smiling brightly in the picture. A tear rolled down his cheek. I wanted to make you proud, he said softly, but maybe I'm not enough. He lay back on the bed, staring at the cracks on the ceiling. The words escaped his lips again, bitter and broken. Why me? What's the purpose of this pain? And just like that, the night swallowed his voice. But somewhere deep inside, a question lingered, not yet answered, not yet understood. His story was far from over. Because the pain he carried was not without purpose. The morning crept in through the thin curtains, pale and quiet. Aarav woke to the same ceiling cracks, the same ache behind his eyes, but something inside him had softened, like a knot loosening after too many nights of pulling tight. He washed his face, put on his only clean shirt, and stepped outside into the damp air. The city smelled of wet dust and chai. He didn't know where he was going until his feet decided for him. 10 minutes later he was back at the construction site, the place where yesterday's hammer blows had followed him home. The men were already at work, breaking stone, mixing sand, passing buckets up a scaffold that creaked with each step. An older mason noticed him lingering near the plywood gate. You look like you haven't slept, the man said, setting down a trowel. He had salt in his beard and dust in the folds of his knuckles. Tea? Aarav nodded. The man waved him toward a roadside stall. The kettle hissed, 2 small cups arrived, steam rose, sweet and spiced. They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the sight. I'm Kareem, the mason said. You? Aarav. Kareem sipped, then tilted his head toward the workers. Yesterday, you stared at us like we were mad. Aarav managed a tired smile. I thought, why would anyone choose this? The noise. The heat. The braking. It felt pointless. Kareem's eyes creased. Braking looks pointless if you don't know what comes next. Aarav looked down at his tea. I failed another interview. Kareem took another slow sip. And so you came to watch men hit rocks with hammers. He glanced at Aarav's face. There's something you're not saying. Aarav swallowed. I don't know who I'm becoming. Every time I try, something goes wrong. I used to think pain had a lesson. Now it just feels like punishment. Kareem didn't answer right away. A cement mixer turned, groaning. Birds argued on a wire overhead. Finally, he said, when I was 28, the factory I worked in shut down overnight. No salary. No severance. 2 kids. Rent due. I thought life was over. He ran his thumb along a scar on his left hand. I begged a contractor for work. I started as a helper, carrying bags, sweeping floors, eating dust. My wife asked me, for how long? I said, just until it gets better. It didn't. Not quickly. Aarav waited. One day, the foreman slapped my chisel out of my hand. Said I was too slow. My fingers bled. Kareem flexed them, as if the memory still stung. I went home angry. I wanted to quit. But the rent didn't care about my pride. The kids didn't care about my anger. So I showed up again the next day. And the next. I learned to mix the ratio right, to read a plan, to level a wall by eye. He pointed to a neat column rising from the mud. You see that joint? Looks perfect from here. Before the brick sits there, you soak it in water. If you don't, it sucks moisture out of the mortar, and the wall weakens. People think strength is dryness and speed. Sometimes strength is patience, saturation, time. Aarav traced the rim of his cup. And the breaking? Kareem nodded at a pile of crushed stone. Concrete doesn't want whole rocks. It wants aggregate, broken, jagged pieces that grip each other. A whole stone slides. Broken stones lock. The breaking creates faces that hold. We crush the rock not to destroy it, but to give it something to cling to. Aarav stared at the heap. Broken pieces, glittering in the light. Something in his chest shifted. Kareem set his empty cup on the stall. Pain isn't the proof that you're weak. Sometimes it's the cracking that gives you edges, discipline, humility, hunger, so you can hold on when weight arrives. He shrugged lightly. But I could be wrong. You tell me, what did your last rejection teach you? Aarav almost laughed. That I'm not wanted. Kareem didn't flinch. Anything else? Aarav thought of the panel's questions. The way he had stumbled on a basic one. The way his resume still listed an old address. The way his voice had gone dry. It taught me, he said slowly, that I don't prepare for the follow-up questions. That I freeze when they ask for examples. That my resume looks like I gave up halfway. That's not wanted, Kareem said. That's needs work. Different diagnosis. Different medicine. A truck rattled past, dust lifted and settled. On the scaffold, a young worker lifted a bucket, slipped, recovered. He grinned at his friend, they kept moving. What if I fix everything and still fail? Aarav said. Kareem spread his hands. Then the hammer's not done. Some stones take longer. But the purpose hasn't changed. They stood in quiet. The noise of the site faded to a low heartbeat. Finally Kareem said, do you know why I stayed in this line? Aarav shook his head. Because one day, after months of mixing and carrying, the first structure I worked on took shape. A family moved in. I watched a little girl run down a hallway I had helped plaster. She laughed. That laugh, it did something to me. His mouth softened. My pain had not been for nothing. It had built a place where someone could sleep safely. The ache in my back had a map. Aarav blinked hard. Kareem reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a small, dog-eared notebook. I keep lists, he said. Materials, measurements, mistakes. If I don't write them, I repeat them. He flipped to a blank page, tore it out, and pressed it into Aarav's hand. Go home. List what went wrong at your last interviews. Not as a judge, like an engineer. Then rewrite your resume tonight. Tomorrow, come here at 7. I'll show you how to make estimates. Numbers, quantities, schedules. If you learn to think like a builder, you'll interview like one. You'd teach me? Aarav asked, stunned. I'll let you stand near the work and ask questions. The rest is yours. Aarav looked down at the paper. It felt heavier than it should. Why help me? Kareem shrugged. Because someone once helped me. And because I'm selfish. Selfish? I get to watch another wall rise, he said, tapping Aarav's chest. Here. Aarav laughed, the sound unfamiliar, almost fragile. He slipped the paper into his pocket. I don't know if I'll succeed. Kareem smiled. I don't know either. But I know this, what you're carrying has weight. If you let it, it will give you edges. It will teach you to hold. The day warmed. Work picked up. Kareem lifted his trowel. 7, he said, pointing at the gate. Don't be late. I won't, Aarav said. He walked home with a different pace. The bills on his table didn't vanish. The ceiling cracks didn't heal. But the room felt less like a cell and more like a workshop. He sat with the notebook page and wrote, I speak too fast when I'm nervous. I don't have examples ready. I avoid eye contact. I wait until the last minute to prepare. My resume is generic. I answer what I think they want, not what I've done. He stared at the list until his hand found a pen again. Under each line, he wrote a small fix, practice answers out loud. Prepare 3 examples, problem action result. Look at the person asking. Prep 2 days before. Tailor resume to the job. Tell the truth with numbers. At midnight he recorded himself answering 2 questions on his phone. He cringed, adjusted, tried again. At 1, he ironed his shirt. At 2, he set an alarm for 6. At 6, he was up. The site stirred when he reached it. Kareem waved him over, handed him a tape and a pencil. Count the bricks in that stack, he said. Estimate how many courses we can lay with them. Then tell me how much mortar we'll need if we aim for a 10mm joint. Don't guess. Check twice. The math was clumsy at first. Aarav miscounted, recalculated, checked, learned. Kareem corrected him gently, then stepped aside. By noon, Aarav knew the names of 3 workers, the weight of a cement bag, and why sand must be sieved. By evening, he knew that if you rush the foundation, the house punishes you later. That night, he tailored his resume for a junior estimator opening at a small builder's supplier he'd found online. He didn't hide the gaps. He wrote plainly. He added a new line he was proud of, on-site volunteer assisted with quantity takeoffs and material tracking. He pressed send. He slept. Days became a rhythm, mornings at the site, afternoons applying, evenings practicing. Not every day felt noble. Some were just heavy. But the heaviness had a direction now. When rejection emails arrived, they no longer sounded like verdicts. They sounded like blueprints, notes in the margin, revise here, strengthen there, clarify this. 2 weeks later, his phone rang while he was chalking a straight line along the wall. Hi, is this Aarav? We received your application. Can you come in tomorrow? He almost dropped the chalk. Yes. Yes, I can. He wore the iron shirt. He took the notebook. He sat in a glass room with a woman who read his resume and said, You don't have direct experience. I don't, he said. But I've been learning. Here are 3 instances where I estimated material, cross-checked with actual usage, and corrected my assumptions the next day. My numbers were off at first. They got better. Here are the reasons. He pushed the notebook forward. Hands still dust-stained traced neat columns and totals. She looked at the pages for a long moment, then smiled. You know what I like? You've been in the dust. Most people we see have never been near a site. I have, he said quietly. And I'm not afraid of the hammer. He didn't know if he'd get the job. He didn't know if the next month would be easier than the last. But as he walked out into the noon sun, he felt the world tilt slightly, as if a weight had shifted from his chest to his hands, where he could use it. He took out his phone and typed a message to Kareem, interview done. Thank you. 7 a.m. tomorrow? Kareem replied one word, always. Aarav slipped the phone into his pocket and stood for a moment, watching people move in every direction, some laughing, some frowning, all carrying something unseen. He touched the edge of the notebook and thought of broken stones locking together, of bricks soaking before they bear a wall, of a little girl running down a corridor that existed because someone stayed. He didn't whisper "Why me?" this time. He breathed, steady and full, and let the truth settle where the pain had been. Your pain has a purpose, and so does mine, and so does yours, my friend. If this story touched your heart, remember this lesson: never let your struggles define your end. They are shaping your beginning. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to Lumora Wordly Tales, because sometimes, the story you hear today might just be the hope you need tomorrow.